supposed to been somewhere else today and didn't prepare, and since we were here, he let his guard down, so we're here now today. But we good. God is good, isn't he?
Amen.
And I ain't gonna keep you long. We're gonna have a little. Kenneth, did that video come up? All right, we wanted to do a little video here before we get into our lesson today, which is learning from the second coming of Christ. And this is part of what's happening in the world, that's coming up on the world, that will be happening shortly before Jesus comes. Can I get it? You want to do it at the end?
Yeah.
Okay. It's just a little segment on what's happening today. So we know that things are coming up on this world. You know, this is a great time and a terrible time, huh? Great time that we are alive. Terrible time that things that's coming up on this world are going to get severe and pretty bad. And this is part of our scripture reading that we had this morning in Matthew 24, 42 and 43. Jesus says, "Watch, therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord doeth come, but know this, that if the good man of the house had known in that watch, and would watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up," because Jesus gave us these words. He first taught some lessons. He gave us 3 lessons that we're going to look at this morning. Number 1, we want to learn from the fig tree. The parable of the fig tree is simple. Jesus is talking about the change in seasons, using the fig tree as an example. But in Jesus' day, the fig tree was very common in Israel, much as it is now. But in that part of the world, figs put forth their fruit 9 months out of the year. Man, that's a long time for some fruit, isn't it? But they are dormant during a few winter months, but are covered in blossoms during the early spring. So when the tree blooms, you know that summer is near, huh? We've seen some of the blooms that these trees have sprung up already, isn't it? You know? We know that summer's getting here quickly because those trees, they bloom and the next day look like they had green leaves on them. You know, I have 2 elm trees in there. I didn't even see no blooms. They just all of a sudden sprung up with green leaves. Just noticed it, the other day. And I'm like, man, I just sprung out with green leaves quickly than usual. The illustration and its explanation are easy, but its application is difficult. What is Jesus referring to when he speaks of changes? Jesus said that when you look at these things, you will know that the time is near. So what are these things? Jesus spent much of his discourse describing the things that would take place before he comes. Have these things taken place? Some has. Since the days of Jesus, there have been wars, disasters, earthquakes, persecution, defection, and the gospel has continued to spread. These things took place in the days just after Jesus. Jesus said that they would. Truly, I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Verse 34. Many of these things have continued to take place since the generation that was alive in the days of Jesus. Since the ascension of Jesus, as recorded in Acts 1, I believe that the days have been primed for Jesus to return again. We can see things happening. Wars. We see career shooting off missiles, trying to hit somebody on to fight. They got all these guys up there that want to fight for some reason. We got Iran. We just recently bombed that. Now we done primed everything for war again at it. So these things are coming. The lesson for us today is this: know that the Lord is near. This is the language of the New Testament writers. Let's go to Philippians 4:5. The Bible says, let your moderation be known unto all men, because the Lord is at hand. Let's go to 1 Peter 4:7. I'm moving too fast. I'll slow down. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 7. The Bible says, but the end of all things is at hand. Be ye therefore sober and watch unto prayer. See, the apostle words were written for the instructions of believers in every age, and they have a special significance for those who live in the time when the end of all things is at hand. His exhortation and warning and his words of faith and courage are needed by every soul who would maintain their faith steadfast until the end. Let's look at James chapter 5. Verses 8 and 9. The Bible wants us to be also patient. Establish your heart, for the coming of the Lord draws nigh. Grudge not one against another, brethren, lest you be condemned. Behold, the judge standeth before the door. So Jesus is. So we are being judged at this time, isn't it? But Jesus is standing there waiting. Lord, just give me a few more minutes. Client ain't ready yet. Just give me a little bit longer. See, James uses almost the same terminology as his divine brother. Jesus said, the Lord is near, right at the door. See, we need to learn this lesson. When we think of Jesus' second coming, we ought not to think it is a long way off. We ought to think of the coming of Jesus soon and near. From the fig tree, learn that the coming of Jesus is soon. Second, we need to learn from Jesus. Matthew 24, 35, and 36. Verse 35 indicates a certainty in the words of Jesus, but 36 indicates an uncertainty in the words of Jesus. He is uncertain regarding the timing of these things. From these two verses, I would pull out two lessons for us to learn, one lesson from each verse. From 35, we learn that these things are certain. Admittedly, Jesus' words in this chapter are difficult to believe, especially regarding the parable of the fig tree. Jesus said that when you see these things happen, you know that his coming is near. So you know that his return is soon. But he spoke these words more than 2,000 years ago. This very observation has led many to renounce their faith. In 2 Peter 3, Peter anticipates this problem to Christianity. See, when you hear the word soon, we think that it will be in the, excuse me, we think that it will be the next thing that we do. In some circumstances, soon could be next week, next month, next year, but surely not 2,000 years, huh? But that is where God is different than we are. For us, eternity is 70 years. Soon means this year, this month, tomorrow, or even right now. But for God, eternity is eternity, huh? And so for him, soon could be 70,000 years. All eternity would make any delay, however long, seems as if it were but a day. But with the Lord, one day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. That's found in 2 Peter 3, verse 8. But how long has the Lord delayed his coming? 2 days. The days of delay have a purpose. They are for repentance. Let's look at 2 Peter 3, 9. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9. Because the Bible says the Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long-suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. Huh? So he's not slack. He's waiting for us to turn our life around, isn't he? See, he does not forget or neglect his children, but he permits the wicked to reveal their true character, that none who desires to do his will may be deceived concerning him. Again, the righteous are placed in the furnace of affliction. They themselves may be purified, that their example may convince others of the reality of faith and godliness, and also that their consistent course may condemn the ungodly and unbelieving. Huh? See, any delay in his coming is an expression of his kindness toward the unrepentant. Huh? Perhaps the Lord is being kind to us. Perhaps today is a day when you need to repent of our sins and bow to the Savior. See, every person who has ever set a date for the return of Christ has always been wrong. In fact, you must realize that if anyone set a date for the return of Christ, you can be assured that he will not return on that day, huh? For the fig tree, learn that the coming of Jesus soon. From Jesus, learn that the return of Christ is certain. God has given us a warning, and we read through the whole book of Matthew 24. But Jesus made this promise in Matthew 24:14. He said, "In this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come." Huh? So everyone will have an opportunity to hear this message or reject it. And once that happened, then Jesus said, "I am coming." Third one is learn from Noah. Matthew 24, verses 37 through 41. Jesus goes back to Genesis, the very first book of the Bible, to illustrate his coming. He tells the story of Noah. Remember that Noah was a man who lived on earth when corruption of man had spread far and deep. Huh? While Noah was building the ark, life went on as usual. We see life going on as usual today as well, doesn't it? Nothing changing, you know. Jesus said that, before the flood, they were eating and drinking, they were marrying and giving in marriage. It's Matthew 24:38. But Jesus describes a typical life. None of these things mentioned by Jesus was particularly sinful. But the people's sin was to ignore the words of Noah. The 8 people in the ark were the only ones saved from the flood. Those who was not in the ark perished. The point of the story is clear. Most people didn't understand that a flood was coming. Matthew 24:39. They made no preparations for that day. They heard Noah's warnings, but they certainly didn't believe that the flood was coming. See, Jesus already given us a warning, y'all. We're going to hear wars, rumors of wars, things that have happened in our world today. And he said, when these things come, watch and be ready, because I ain't coming, huh? We definitely living in the last days, would you say? In verse 39, Jesus said, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. So I believe Jesus was trying to make a point here that his return would be sudden. In Noah's day, life went on as usual. Noah preached for 120 years. That's a long time. And this gospel, after Jesus been still preached over, 2,000 years, that he is coming back. Are we still heeding the warning? But from this fig tree, though the warning was sounded, the people ignored it. When Jesus returned to this earth, his coming will be just as sudden. When the Lord comes back, there isn't going to be any time to repent. The game will be over, and it will all be decided, huh? So we can't get our life ready when Jesus comes. We got to get our life ready now before Jesus comes. Because when Jesus is coming, he's coming to get his people, do away with the wicked, and there's going to be no time to repent. So we need to be ready now. That's why the Bible says, watch and be ready, huh? See, from the fig tree, learn that the coming of Jesus is soon. From Jesus, learn that the return of Christ is certain. From Noah, learn that the return of Christ will be sudden. All these lessons are different in variations on the same point, huh? You need to be ready, church. This is where we begin this morning. Jesus said, ye be ready too, verse 44, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour when you do not think he will, huh? You don't want to keep, you got to be ready, church. Because if we get caught sleeping, we will be lost. That's why we got to pay attention. You know, this virus thing that's going around, this ain't just in certain countries. Like the Ebola, it was just in Africa. It spread because other people was carried out, but this thing went global fast, didn't it? You know? Anytime you shut down all sports in both sides of the continent, all events, this thing is serious, church. It's coming good. You got it ready, Candace? So we're going to look at a little of this.
I'm very thankful that we can come to you with this special presentation. I'm here with a friend, Dr. Neil Nedley, who is the president of the Weimar Institute, as well as an internist and a specialist in how to prevent getting disease and build up your immune system. As we all know, Dr. Nedley, the news has been filled, it's been ubiquitous, talking about the coronavirus and the COVID-19.
Right.
And people are wondering, what can they do? What practical things can we do? It doesn't look like it's leaving the news cycle because new cases are being found. As of the time of this recording, a school just south of us here in Sacramento was closed down, even though there were no local cases. They closed down the school. 6 million people quarantined in Italy. There may be still millions quarantined in China. The word we're hearing is that folks might just expect that it's going to continue to spread. So I want to thank you for joining us today, but if I'm correct, there is at this point no imminent vaccine or no immediate vaccine available.
That's correct. It won't be for at least a year. So yeah, unlike the flu virus, nothing you can do to get vaccinated on this one.
Just covering some of the common questions that are coming in, this is a similar virus to a flu virus. I guess it comes from a family of viruses that are of similar nature. But would you say that the COVID-19 is more or less contagious than the common flu?
Seems to be a little more transmissible. You know, the average individual with the flu will transmit it to a little more than one person on average, and the average person with coronavirus is transmitting it to a little more than two. So it makes it a little more transmissible, probably double the transmission rate.
Now, if I understand right, you and I were talking off air, you said that part of that might be because some people have it and they're not showing serious symptoms, but they are carrying it and they don't know.
Exactly, and this is why this virus is going to spread. You know, unlike SARS or Ebola, where virtually everybody got sick and you could contain it and, you know, contain those sick people, 80% of people getting this virus are not really getting that sick. Maybe a mild cold, maybe a sore throat and it goes away, or maybe no symptoms at all. A lot of people with healthy immune systems, they have no symptoms at all, but yet they're transmitting the virus unknowingly. And so that makes it tough. Only less than 20% actually get sick enough to seek care, you know, and go to a hospital, and those are individuals normally that have the pneumonia, and that's of course much more serious because the pneumonia can go into acute respiratory distress syndrome, and that's why the deaths are occurring.
And then from what I've seen is compared to, I know a lot of people every year die from the common flu because it's pretty much everywhere, but with the coronavirus, they say it may be as high as like 2.3% or 3%. They're still gathering figures, death rate.
Right. Yeah, and it's probably going to be less than that because that's figures on the ones that are known cases.
That's right.
Just kind of like I mentioned, since so many are not actually coming down with many symptoms and they haven't been tested, the death rate of coronavirus is probably going to be less than that. But we do think at this time that the death rates are probably higher than the flu.
Now, since there is no immediate cure or vaccine for this, people are wondering, well, if it comes to a neighborhood near you, which what I'm hearing is they're figuring eventually it is going to continue to spread.
Yeah.
That if it comes to a neighborhood near you, you know, what can you do? Well, for one thing, will the summer season help slow the spread? As you know, flu season, I guess, is typically worse in the winter.
We expect it will probably slow in the summer because of the heat and all of the sunlight. You know, sunlight is antiviral, and of course, sunlight helps our immune system with vitamin D. And just like the flu goes away in the summertime, many experts are thinking this will likely occur. Although, since it's a novel virus, we're not absolutely sure until time does occur.
You know, that's an excellent segue. Your specialty is at the Institute teaching a program that's world famous right now called New Start, which is talking about certain natural things a person can do to improve their immunity and improve their health overall.
Exactly.
Can you explain what New Start is?
Well, New Start is an acronym that Weimar has trademarked, and it's very easy to remember these 8 principles that have been shown to be very immune enhancing. Proper nutrition is the N, the E is exercise, the W is water, which is being talked a lot about in the coronavirus. The S is sunlight, the T is temperance, that means avoiding things that are harmful to the immune system, like alcohol and tobacco. The A is air, and of course, fresh air is a great way not to get the virus. There's virtually no cases spread, you know, outdoors. And then R is rest, proper rest, which means getting enough sleep. And then T is trust in divine power, which is actually shown to also be immune enhancing. So if we have 8 of these principles together, we can expect that our immune system will make us one of the ones, if we're exposed to it, one of the ones with no symptoms or maybe just mild symptoms.
Yeah, well, that's very encouraging. So there's a chance we could be in that 70 or 80% that may be exposed. Now, if a person is exposed to coronavirus and they are able to resist it, they're developing, if I'm not mistaken, certain antibodies that help prevent them in the future.
Exactly. Yeah, those antibodies will be protective of them in the future, and that's actually better than getting the vaccine when you've gotten the real thing and your body's fought it off.
Now, we were talking, some of these viruses that are spreading, you know, some folks are saying, well, was this, you know, a bioweapon that the Chinese or somebody was developing? And I think that the general belief is no, this has happened before with these viruses mutating and they're being caught from animals.
Correct.
But not just any animals. Typically animals the Bible would normally tell us are unclean animals.
Exactly. That's why God told us to stay away from these, was to prevent epidemics in nations and throughout the world. And so virtually every epidemic, whether it was the SARS virus, Ebola, AIDS, they all have the signature that they started from actually eating unclean meat. And because we're an unclean animal, we spread that readily. So this is why if we can get an infection from a cow, we might die from that, but we're not going to spread it to other human beings. And so eating unclean meat is really unresponsible, because if you get an infection from unclean meat, you're going to readily spread that to other humans who are actually innocent. You know, they're not eating that. And of course, we can trace it to the actual supermarket, and the person who first contracted this from unclean animals, and in coronavirus case, it was a bat.
Now, when we talk about the some of the things that people can do, you know, there's been some practical information given. Of course, I guess the same things that you would follow when it comes to the common flus. Be more careful with the washing, sanitizing, avoid certain congested places, especially if you're in an area that has been identified as, you know, where there's community spread. But so there's things we can do to increase our immune system by following the New Start principles.
Yeah, the nutrition, antioxidant foods. Your high antioxidant foods in vegetables and in fruit will actually help us. So these are your cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and the greens are very potent antioxidants. Spinach, kale is the number 2 antioxidant vegetable, and the number 1 is garlic. And garlic even has some very strong antiviral activity, and can even take care of viruses itself, plus it can help our immune system with that. And the fruits are going to be primarily your berries, and the whole fruit that actually has the most antioxidants that are not berries is a simple plum. And so these are things that can actually protect our immune system and help us fight these things off.
You know, I'm so glad that you've come in to share this with us. There are a lot of different videos going out around about the coronavirus where people are selling health supplements and things at exorbitant prices, and we're doing this to let people know there's free things exactly that God's provided in His Word.
Right.
Now, you did say there's one thing you might buy over the counter at a typical drugstore that could help boost your immune system.
Yeah, a New England Journal did a study on the flu 3 weeks ago that was published, showing that if you take N-acetylcysteine, and of course this is a natural antioxidant that boosts our glutathione. It's very cheap. You can get it in any drugstore or pharmacy. 2 of those pills a day, which is 1,200 milligrams. If you're exposed to the flu, 3 out of 4 that were taking the NAC developed 0 symptoms and developed antibodies against it. And that's off the charts in regards to anything else. In fact, better than the flu vaccine itself, by helping our own immune system do that. And it's pretty simple. It raises our glutathione levels and helps us in other ways too.
That's good. And so what's the name of it again if they just go to the counter?
Yeah, N-acetylcysteine will be called NAC, because that's what it stands for, NAC, so it's really easy to remember, NAC.
Very good. Now, if people want to know more about the New Start principles to help boost their immune system, and there's many other health benefits, the website?
Yeah, newstart.com. It's pretty easy. It's newstart.com, and you can get a lot more information.
And we've got something exciting for those that are watching. You know, everything here, we're providing free information so that people can get the truth out. That there was a magazine that Weimar printed in cooperation with Amazing Facts a few years ago, and it's dealing with the New Start principles. And I think Dr. Nedley contributed to this. It's called Amazing Health Facts, 8 Bible Secrets to a Longer and a Stronger Life. Anybody that wants a free copy of this, if you want to know how you can boost your immune system and just other ways of improving your health, just click on the link at the bottom of this video. You get it for free, and we hope you'll pass it on to your friends. Well, anything else you want to add, Dr. Nedley, about what we might keep in mind with what's happening? People are afraid. So should we be afraid? Or?
Well, I don't think there's really a reason to fear if our immune systems are good and we're healthy. Now, if we're unhealthy and we have something definitely suppressing our immune system, that might be a reason to stay inside and stay more isolated if it's out and about in the community. But for those of us who have healthy immune systems, and not that we're out there asking to come in contact with it, so we develop our vaccine and antibodies, we still need to wash our hands. If we're putting our hands up to our face, those hands need to be washed immediately beforehand. If you mess up and you don't do that, I would recommend you carry around a little zinc lozenge, because zinc is toxic to the coronavirus on contact. So if you happen to, oh wow, I just touched my face and I touched this surface over here, and if it's infected, I'm doomed. No, zinc is toxic to the virus on contact, and those little zinc coldies or other zinc lozenges can be helpful. Exercise, aerobic exercise. The water therapy that is best is actually the contrast baths. When you end with cold, it is an immune stimulator. And so if you, in the morning, instead of just taking your hot shower, just alternate hot and cold, end with cold for a minute, and you'll warm up again right away, and that's very immune enhancing. Of course, the S for sunlight, the T for temperance, the A for fresh air, the R for rest, and the T for trust in God. If you have all those 8 principles, I'm not really worried about you if you were to come in contact with the coronavirus with the precautions that we've talked about, and we can still be a very positive influence in the world. But it does underscore the need that New Start needs to go viral.
Yeah.
Because that's our protection.
Yeah. Following the principles God gave us for natural healing and health, and they're all outlined in God's Word as well.
Exactly.
And I like that last T, especially trust.
Yes.
God doesn't want us to live in fear. He wants us to live in faith. Thank you so much. We appreciate your coming in, folks. We hope this is helpful. And don't neglect, take a look at the newstart.com website, and remember to download the free magazine.
God don't want us to live in fear, He wants us to live in faith, huh? So with God, we can trust God because He already put it into play in the beginning, huh? We done got away from this plan. We need to get back to this plan. And I missed the green beans wasn't on there, but green beans on that. We see that Jesus is coming. This is one of the things that we see that's coming on that God is going to take care of His people, y'all. We see all these things, and this is just the beginning of things that's happening. So we're going to see some more viruses probably spring up that man cannot get a grip of. God is going to take care of His people, huh? So we need to get the right relationship with Jesus, so that way when these things come up on the world, we will be protected, huh? Amen. Let us look to the dismiss the Heavenly Father, Lord. Thank you for that information, Lord. We already understand that information, but Lord, help us to implicate it in our lives, Lord, that when these things come up, Lord, that we be taken care of through this age. And Lord, let us not be asleep, but let us watch and pray, Lord, that we not get caught sleeping when these things come up. And when you come, we can say, here's our Lord, we've been waiting for Him. We ask in this in Jesus'